Welcome to The Hidden Load, the podcast where we uncover the unseen weight carried by the educators and leaders in medicine and explore how to lighten it. I am Dr. Santina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, a leader, and a coach. Each week, we will dig into the challenges that often go unspoken, from burnout and boundaries to purpose and identity to figuring out sustainability, and share practical tools to help you move from chaos to calm and from burnout to balance. Because the hidden load does not have to be yours to carry alone, and in fact, shouldn't be. Let's get started. Welcome back to The Hidden Load for the educators and leaders in medicine. This is episode number 14, Caring for Ourselves While Supporting Our Struggling Learners. I am your host, Dr. Santina Wheat, and today we are talking about something that nearly every educator and leader faces. But it's something that we don't always talk about openly. And that is how to care for ourselves while we are working with struggling learners. Because we all know there are these moments, the ones that stretch our patience, that challenge our confidence, and that just leave us questioning on our impact. They are part of what makes teaching and leading both meaningful and also at times make it incredibly draining. And so if you have ever gone home after a hard feedback session, or you have stayed up late replaying a conversation in your mind, wondering if you were too harsh or too soft, or if you missed something important, then you are certainly not alone. Today, I want to talk about why these situations are so hard, how we can continue to show up, both with grace and curiosity, and then how we can continue to support those who are struggling while we are still protecting ourselves, our own emotional and mental well-being. So I have had plenty of days where I've had to give difficult feedback or had a difficult encounter either with a learner or a team member or a direct report. And I've gone home and I've just replayed the conversation or the experience over and over and over again. There have been times where I've sat in the car just wondering if I should continue to do this. There have been times where some of these thoughts have brought me to tears. And it feels hard to have those conversations with my peers, with my supervisor about how tough that could be. And so I want to start with an acknowledgement. Working with a struggling learner or a team member is hard. And it's okay to have the feelings that you do. It is not hard because we don't care about working with them. It is hard, in fact, because we do care about working with them. And it's important to keep that in the back of our minds as we are having this conversation. As educators and as leaders, we want our learners and our team to succeed. That is why many of us are doing what we are doing. We see their potential, and we often feel a deep sense of responsibility for their progress. And unfortunately, we don't always get to see all of the positives. Sometimes it's not until years later that they call and say, wow, what you did really made a difference. And so sometimes it can be hard to see that benefit in the moment. So when our learners or our direct reports are not meeting our expectations, it can absolutely feel personal. It can feel like we have failed them somehow. It is not uncommon after a difficult situation for me to take a step back and wonder what it was that I did wrong. And that weight right there, it can be very heavy. On top of that, we work in environments where time is extremely limited. Feedback conversations can feel rushed and there might not be dedicated time for them. And the stakes are absolutely high, especially when patient care or team dynamics are involved. The emotional load of supporting someone who's struggling can sneak up on us. It might show up as frustration or exhaustion or guilt or even resentment. And those feelings can be compounded by the internal tension between wanting to help them and also needing to maintain the standards that we do to ensure good patient care. All of this is an extremely tough balance. Sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves to fix the situation, to find those perfect words, the perfect plan, or the perfect approach that will help the learner suddenly just get it. But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. Growth takes time, and not every challenge can be solved by our effort alone. Recognizing this truth can help us release some of the self-blame that often comes with these moments. So I hope you can let go of some of that right now. So, how do we continue to show up with grace and curiosity and compassion, both for our learners and honestly for ourselves? Well, for me, it starts with remembering why it is I'm engaging in the conversation in the first place. It's not about assigning blame or assigning judgment. It is about understanding what is really going on. So when we approach struggling learners with curiosity, we shift from what is wrong with them to what might be getting in their way. That question opens up space for dialogue, not for defensiveness. Grace and curiosity allow us to see the whole person who is in front of us, not just their performance in one given moment. Maybe the learner's apparent lack of motivation is actually burnout. Maybe their disorganization is rooted in anxiety, or there is family stress that you're not aware of. Maybe what looks like disengagement is really a fear of failure or confusion about how to implement what it is you're asking. We do not always know what is beneath the surface. That doesn't mean that we should lower our expectations, and it certainly does not mean that we should avoid the hard conversations. It just means that we have to enter those conversations with empathy. We have to know that behavior often has a story behind it. And this is where curiosity helps us. Curiosity helps us avoid the trap of making the situation about us. It is easy to take things personally, to think, oh, they just don't respect me, or they're not listening. But often their struggle isn't a reflection of us. And I'm going to say that again because it's something that I'm bad at remembering. Often their struggle is not a reflection of us. The curiosity keeps the focus where it belongs. It belongs on growth. So as you are maintaining your curiosity, I want you to remember that there is often more to the story. There is something so powerful about remembering that we all have seasons when we struggle. We all have them. Most of us can look back and identify a time when we weren't at our best. We didn't show up as our best selves. It might have been that life was messy, or that we were overwhelmed, or that we were trying to prove ourselves and just kept falling short. Our learners are no different. Sometimes what they need the most is someone who can hold both accountability and compassion at the same time. They need someone who believes that they can do better while recognizing that they are human. And that is not easy. It takes emotional energy to stay patient, to re-explain, and to keep giving feedback when the progress feels slow. It's sometimes easier just to throw our hands in the air and give up. But that doesn't help them, and that doesn't help you. Which is why, if we do not care for ourselves in that process, we risk burning out in the act of caring. And that is where the importance of self-compassion comes in. So, how do we care for ourselves while we're caring for others? Well, it's not always simple. We have to be intentional about it. And here is something that I have to remind myself of often. Supporting our struggling learners or our struggling teammates does not mean that we are sacrificing ourselves in the process. We can hold space for someone else's growth without carrying all of the responsibility for it. So, for example, I used to think that supporting someone else meant that I was giving them all of my time, or that I had to be the one to show up and do all the accountability. But that never worked. It just caused me to have resentment and exhaustion in the process. And so here are a few practices that can help. The first is to just pause after hard interactions. It's important to give yourself permission to take a breath before jumping into the next task. Even a short pause can help you reset emotionally. Sometimes for me, that might be doing a quick lap, getting some sunshine, listening to a song that always allows me to just be me and reset. Sometimes it's closing the door so that nobody else can walk in. Sometimes it's canceling that next meeting that can be pushed to another time because it allows you to reset. The next step is to reflect, but not ruminate. Reflection helps us learn. Rumination keeps us stuck. If you catch yourself replaying a conversation, ask yourself, what do I want to learn from this? And then also, what do I want to let go of? If you missed it, I did a whole episode on reflection, which was episode number 5. Go back and take a listen if you haven't heard it, or to remind yourself of how reflection can really be beneficial. And then the next step is to seek perspective. It can be helpful to talk to a trusted colleague or a mentor. Sometimes just naming what's hard helps to release it. I will often reach out to my chair when I'm struggling with someone so that I can make sure that I have said all of the things. And sometimes those conversations are not about her telling me what I need to do differently. Sometimes those conversations are allowing me to process and say all of the parts and allows me to think through, oh, did I miss this step or did I handle it well? Saying it out loud just can be helpful. And then it is important to set emotional boundaries. Remember that caring deeply does not mean that you need to be endlessly available. You can support someone's growth without being their constant emotional anchor. In fact, you should not be their constant emotional anchor. You can provide availability, but you do not have to give all of your time. This was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. And then you have to acknowledge your impact. Even when things don't go perfectly, your effort, your presence, and your care will matter more than you realize. And maybe most importantly, give yourself the same grace that you give to your learners. You are learning too. Celebrate the wins that you have after those hard conversations. Celebrate them for yourself and celebrate them for your learners too. Working with struggling learners or team members can bring out our best intentions and our deepest insecurities. But when we approach those moments with curiosity, empathy, and healthy boundaries, they can also become opportunities. Opportunities for both growth and grace for the learners and ourselves. Because caring for others and caring for ourselves, they are not opposites. They are parallel practices that allow us to lead and to teach with a compassion that lasts. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Hidden Load. If this reflection resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with a colleague or a mentor who supports learners and remind them and yourself that it is okay to show up human. Next week, we are going to talk about the hidden load of financial stressors. This is a topic that for many feels taboo, but weighs on all of us, and so certainly is a hidden load. I hope you will join me for this conversation and can take away some strategies to help you lighten the hidden load of financial stressors. And until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thanks for joining me on The Hidden Load. Tag me on Instagram at Dr. Tina Wheat or email me at santina@santinawheat.com with your takeaways and ideas. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, let's lighten your hidden load.